In the last session, what we discussed is what is the way to create a simple EJB using our Oracle J developer, and we are used the version of 11.1.1.7.0. Okay, this is a stabilized version for now. So in this session, we are going to see how we are going to integrate our JDBC through our Java code. In the ancient days, in the olden days, what we will do is we will create a JDBC connectivity between your Java code to your database, to creating a connection between to Java to your databases, whatever database it is, like SQL or MySQL or whatever. Okay. But the ultimate logic will be same in all the areas, but the problem is the way how we are going to establish the connection between to your JDBC. Like, so here I'm gonna take a simple example of our default table in a HR schema. So in HR schema, we do have a table name called employees. In employees, we have different fields like employee ID, first name, last name, and email, phone number, and all. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some data from the employee table, or I'm trying to update a specific employee ID, or I'm trying to delete some employee, or I'm trying to select all the records from my employee table. Okay. So how we are going to do it? That is all about this demo. Okay. So first of all, before we are going into the deep, first we need to know what is entities. Actually, in this session, we are going to talk about a lot about entities. Entities is a pure Java class, like our DTO data objects, and our SQL table is separate. So what my entity will do? My entity is acted as a bridge between your database, your database tables, as well as your the Java code base. How? That's the question. Whenever you create a new entity, it represents your fields in your tables. So each and every field it has its own Java object. Simple thing. If Java object refers to your Java, and the same Java variables it associated to some other table field names. It's very difficult to explain, but when you see a sample entity file, you can easily identify how the entities looks like and how we are defining the table fields into your Java objects. For example, I have a table, first name, last name, there's a two fields. I'm creating one entity with this first name and last name. It's a pure Pojo class. I'm converting my Pojo class into an entity. It's nothing but I have a variable called private string first name. So I'm converting that field into a database field to representing my first underscore name column. Using annotations, we can do it. So I'll create a simple entity. So as I mentioned, I'm going to use the HR schema. Okay, see, look at the HR schema table. Here you have employee ID and so many details. Okay, I'm going to create a new entity. See, there are too many options here. Entities from table and entities. So two things we are going to discuss about. So what is entity? Entity is a pure DTO object, like a Java class. But why we are calling it as an entity? Because the DTO is not representing the data object. In this scenario, it's representing a object which is holding the database object. Okay. But why do I have two different varieties of entities? One is entity from table and another one is entity. Entities from tables, it's easy to create entities using a database connectivity. What you can do is you can choose the entity from table and you can provide a database connectivity, and there you can choose whatever tables you need to convert into a JPA object, and you can make use of it to doing the DM operations. Entity, you have to create your own Java class. There you need to provide all details manually. For example, I have two fields in table. I have to create, excuse me, private string first name and private string last name, and up top of the first name and last name you need to create annotation column name. This is the column name and this is this type, and you need to provide the same to the last name also to creating the entity objects through manually without the online database connectivity. But it's not a preferable way. The preferable way is always to creating entities using your own database connectivity. I'm going to use entities from table. We'll see how to create entities from table and click OK. So I have a persistent unit nothing but in this persistent unit you have all the entity information. Okay, for example, if you have multiple tables, it has multiple entities. Those entities provided inside the persistent unit. So using this persistent unit, you can do all the daemon operations. I'll show you how the persistent unit looks like. Okay, click next. Here I have selected tables. There are so many tables displayed, but when we're doing it the first time, it will not show this screen. What you can do is, for example, I don't want to use the test EJB service. I'm going to create my own entity. Because why it's showing test EJB? Because I use the same application to create another persistent unit. I don't want any existing. I'm going to create a new one. For example, my entity name is persistent underscore unit underscore one. JPE demo non-ET data system. Data system is not optional. If you want, you can use it, or else you can keep it as empty. Okay, and then you can click OK. So this persistent unit will create in your persistent XML. I'm not going to create because I have already persistent XML. Just cancel. Or else there is, like, next I'll show you some other details later. HR, and here it will show the tables employee, and click next and you give a name. You can create a name package. Next and finish. So there is a new package inside the session. You have an entity package. Just double click and open it. You can easily identify what we are talking about. I have a Java object and there is annotation column commission BCT. This Java object referring this column name. Department ID referring department ID column. That annotation will do the join to your database and your Java objects. And you can see something called ID. ID is nothing but it's representing your primary key. And one more thing, whenever you are using JPA entities, you need to have a primary key in your entities. Without a primary key, you cannot use the entity objects. The key for your JPA object is your primary key. So even if you don't have a primary key in your tables, it's not even allowing you to create entities. Okay, so the ID is representing your primary key, and there are so many tables, and we do have a many to one and one to one column. This is a same our SQL operations, one to many to one, many to many, so on. So I'm going to stop this session here. We'll see the next video how we are going to integrate these entities into our Java code.